Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. How are you today?
Since last week you asked me for good news, I deliberately went out to look for good news this week to start off with. Oh, yes, I did. And the good news is the landmark $11 billion that Nigeria won in the case that they had that had been ongoing for quite a bit. And I thought that that would be some good news that you would be interested in. Was I right?
Well, it's a two-edged news, isn't it? On one hand, thank God we won the case, or else by now, I don't know what would have happened to all Nigerians, because we would have gone bankrupt if we had lost that case. There's nowhere we would have got that money. So that is the good news. That's the good aspect of it. The second leg of the good aspect is that the judge acknowledged that foreigners were ripping Nigerian off through very dubious means. And that to that extent, if you like, the foreign businessmen who are doing business in Nigeria should feel ashamed of themselves. Not all of them, but several of them. Because we have said so. Nigerians have said so in so many times and in so many places that for Nigeria, for Nigerians to be corrupt, they need foreign corrupt partners. And I recall one episode when Cameron, I believe it was your prime minister, who told the Queen, Her Majesty, late Queen, Nigeria was fantastically corrupt. And people thought Buhari was going to be angry and refused to attend, I think it was some summit in London. And he was asked by a journalist what his reaction was to Cameron calling Nigeria fantastically corrupt. And in a stroke of brilliance, he said, just return our money you are keeping. In other words, whether it's the foreigners or the Nigerians who stole the money, they bring that money to British banks. And you know, in law, both the person who stole and the person who received stolen goods are both criminals. They are both guilty of theft. I thought that was brilliant of Buhari. So in a way, this judge had just put a legal imprimatur on that, on what we've been saying, that foreigners have been coming to Nigeria to steal dubious means to take Nigerian money. But the negative part of it is that that what do you call it? That company could not have done all of this without the connivance of Nigerians. And what is even worse is that it had to be with the connivance of Nigerians in government, occupying government positions. And we are not talking about ministers. We are talking about civil servants. Civil servants. It is with their connivance. They collect money from the contractors. So that's why I said it was a two-edged judgment. On one hand, thank goodness we were saved. On the other hand, the judge put the blame where it belongs, dubious foreign companies, but with the connivance of Nigerian public servants. Now, that's the question you asked me. I know the next question you're going to ask. So let me answer that. Even if you don't ask it, somebody on this panel is going to ask it. So let me preempt both of you by answering it.
Okay, sir. I will let you know if you answered the right question at the end.
Okay. Somebody is bound to ask me, why am I dealing with foreign matters when a major event has just happened in Nigeria today? And that is the Supreme Court judgment on our presidential elections. Now, let me start off where I ended the last time. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a municipal lawyer. I think I better keep repeating that, because just last week, I wrote an opinion on the law of the sea for a company in the United States who knew me from my Fletcher days and knew that we part of our course at the Fletcher School led to a master's degree in international law and diplomacy. And so I wrote an opinion on that. In the United States, that would be regarded as normal. In Nigeria, I will not be regarded as a learned person. I will even have to fight to be accepted as an educated person. So don't let me make any comment on the legal aspects of the case. Let me take off from the last comment of Justice Okoro, the leading judge of this case. He warned about litigants and even lawyers going before the public, holding press conferences over an issue that was alive before the court. And he said they should remember that that there's a concept of sub judice, which is the second part of what do you call it now? Oh dear, I can't remember the where you are guilty of where for making comments over a matter that was alive before the court, you are guilty of something.
Contempt of court.
Contempt of court. Thank you. Contempt of court. And he then said, award is enough for the wise. Really, I ought to stop there. However, let me say this. I grew up at the time of Justice Adetokunbo Ademola, Justice G.B.A. Coker, Justice Ayode, Justice Okuta, etc., etc., where you will not even dare to smile in their court when they are giving judgment, or when there is a case going on. You wouldn't even dare smile. And it had now come to a situation where all Tom, Dick, and Harry, as soon as include senior advocates of Nigeria, who should know better, as soon as they finish a case in court, they come out and they are addressing the press. First of all, I happen to
Hello, sir. Bear with me 1 second. Let me see if we can get Prof. Bear with us 1 second. Bear with me 1 second. Let me try to get Prof back. We lost Prof there. I'll try to get him back in a minute. But very interesting point around the ruling of the Supreme Court. I will just bear with me 1 second and I will get Prof back. Please bear with me while we try to get him back. I don't know if the first vice president of the academy would like to comment on this point as well. Ambassador Igali.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Akinyemi. I think that Prof has said it all. Most of us listen to the reading of the judgment by the very respected justices of the Supreme Court, and were very clear on the direction of their thoughts. But I think they also established some major issues of jurisprudence regarding the future of Nigeria's democracy. And they've laid down constitutional precepts that will guide the electoral process, things that are not expressly covered in the Electoral Act. But for me, one thing that is significant is the fact that elections have a cycle. They come and go. And rightly, those who decided to follow constitutional means, follow the rule of law and due process, and being able to seek redress in the courts have done very well, because it's an exercise of their democratic rights. But beyond that, it is also a consolidation of our democracy. That when there are contentious issues arising from the elections, arising from other matters, we can approach the courts and patiently endure through the laborious and rigorous process of the courts. And that's exactly what particularly the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the candidate of Labour Party, former Anambra Governor Peter Obi, did. They went through the courts. They were patient enough with their counsels, some of the best lawyers that this country have, people who are members of the body of benchers, many of them. They were able to appear before the courts at different places in decorum, in dignity, and with great intellectual swagger to argue out their cases. Now the Supreme Court has ruled. I think this brings to a close the election process cycle, and it's time for us to move ahead with working with the government to be able to take our country forward. There's a finality that has been placed, at least on the election. If there are other issues, like the justices said, if there are criminal issues that border on other aspects of law, that is left for different parties and different institutions to pursue. But as it pertains to the election, they've upheld the election of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So Nigerians must now move forward. The way we debated, the way we disagreed, we agreed on the elections should now be put behind us. And the precepts of law, the precepts of jurisprudence established by the Supreme Court will be passed on to those who will be contesting future elections. This has implications also for the foreign policy, because now we can settle down and begin to, in great confidence, build a wall of national coalition, national consensus, national acceptance around our president, and work with him and see how we can move our country forward. Nigeria is a country we all own, and by the end of the day, the courts have been fair to everybody. None of the lawyers were shouted to keep quiet, not to talk, and everybody went there and were given the right attention, right audience to be able to ventilate their opinions and their own thoughts. But finally, I think Nigerians of all goodwill should congratulate our president, congratulate the other contenders for the expression of confidence in our country that we can, as they say, agree to disagree and come back together. I think they all deserve our commendation. They all deserve our common admiration and respect. I want to leave it there so that other members in the audience can be able to comment on their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sorry, sir, Prof, we lost you briefly there.
Yes, yes. No, I concur with Ambassador Igali's submission. I wasn't even going to go there at all. So he's added value to what I was saying. Because I wanted to end on that note of lawyers and litigants being careful of contempt. Number two, lawyers should be aware, and they know it, that there is a code of conduct in their own, that you don't wear wigs and the gown outside the court premises, not to talk about wearing them and addressing the press. And I think this is where Justice Okoro, the noble Lord, said a word, is enough for the wise. I recall when I was growing up, a case before Justice Daddy Oyama, and a federal minister, maybe I shouldn't mention his name, appeared before the judge, and he was wearing his cap as part of his dressing. And that Justice Daddy Oyama said, "Will you remove your cap in my court?"
Yeah, we seem to be having some tech issues this evening, all the way in from the other end. Just bear with us. I'm sure that we'll get Prof back in a minute. Bear with us. While we wait to get Prof back, is there any other person who wants to comment on this? Please feel free to raise your hands, and once I see that hand raised, I will bring you back on while we try to get Prof back in. Anyone who wants to comment on this issue? What message would you be giving to those who have lost? What message would you be sharing with Nigerians on this topic that you feel that Nigerians should think about? Also, last week, there was a particular question that was asked regarding Nigeria's position at the United Nations Human Rights Council, and the fact that Nigeria had lost out, and Nigeria had only 3 votes. And the question was, what did Nigeria do to just have 3 votes in there? And some said Nigeria pulled out, some said Nigeria didn't pull out, some said Nigeria was losing credibility outside, and that was starting to show. And I guess that it's a point we can discuss this evening while we wait to get Prof back as well. I don't know if the doctor that raised that last week is still on the call. The doctor that raised that point last week, if you're here and you want to make your point again, please raise your hand. Anybody who wants to comment on that, please let me know. I think we have Professor Akinyemi back. Prof, can you hear me, sir? Bear with me. Let's see if we can sort that out. See. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to comment on any of those 2 points. Feel free to unmute yourself while I get Professor Akinyemi back.
Well, Dr. Akinyemi, let me come back. This is Ambassador Igali. Can I go on?
Go ahead, sir.
I think that while some of our colleagues are making up their minds if they will be commenting on the various issues, on this last point, I think that sometimes we are very unfair to ourselves in terms of the general rate in which we have of Nigeria standing within the Committee of Nations. We try to sniff around at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and what I was informed, it was not an official statement, but from someone who is in a position to know, was that we had a haphazard participation in that process. We showed interest, and it was clear that another African country was preferred and zoned to occupy it. And we withdrew, but the processes were not quite properly firmed up to show that we're not there. So still at the final stage, we still earned some about 3 votes, which we did not properly participate in. So I don't think it has anything to do with our rating, with our standing before other countries. I believe that it may be contentious, it may not be accepted by all, but Nigeria remains a highly respected country in the Committee of Nations. We have our own problems. We have no doubt we won't run away from that. But at the same time, other countries also have deep, profound problems. And still, we hold some of them in the highest esteem. So the same for Nigeria. People understand that we can do better, we must do better. But at the same time, we are not a Lilliputian nation. We're a nation that is very respected. And I've seen that there are 1 or 2 of my colleagues. I'm surprised that Ambassador Shea Onofawo was not saying anything. He was Nigeria's High Commissioner in Ghana. And he knows what it means to be Nigeria's High Commissioner in a country like Ghana, where you're almost rated as somebody that has 24 hours access to the highest office in the country, and ditto for many other African countries and countries in the global south. So I think that we have to keep working on our internal processes. Am I cut off?
No, we can hear you, Ambassador.
Okay, I think we have to keep working on our internal processes, but at the same time, let us also not lose faith in the fact that we remain a country of note around the world.
Thank you very much, sir. Ambassador Gali, we're still trying to sort out the audio issue on Prof's side. Let me ask you the question. Let me move away and go towards the Middle East. I don't know if you listened to the speech by the Israeli Prime Minister and what his position was regarding the next phase of the situation that's going on there, sir. What is your take, sir, on that speech by the Israeli Prime Minister?
Well, for me, as a person, I think that that was a terrible speech. There were a lot of things he stated that a statesman shouldn't be saying, even if you're at war. For example, if you say, we're going to bring down hell in a state of belligerency, That is a terrible thing to say. And in this case, um, we all know the humanitarian situation on the Gaza, and what one would have expected a level of moderation. That does not mean that anyone is taking side with Hamas, and the fact that they are still holding innocent women, children, and old people, but at the same time to use a speech that is very bellicose and full of hard language to say that will bring down hell on a people, not just on Hamas, but on the people. I think that is, for a statesman, the speech could have been properly more better couched. So maybe some of our colleagues will have their own comments. But I think at this stage, like the position that the Academy on International Affairs has taken, we've taken a middle course that the important thing is to de-escalate the conflict. And all nations of the world de-escalate the conflict, including some of the leading world powers who are involved. They shouldn't take sides. They should be dispassionate in their mediation. They should be dispassionate in ensuring that the laws of war and the humanitarian laws and human rights are respected, and that they will look at our common humanity, despite the fact that Israel is at war with Hamas, to know that there's a lot of humanitarian crisis on the Gaza. That's number one. And the second thing, which position that the Academy of International Affairs took, is the fact that, yes, the opportunity has now come for the global community to discuss once more comprehensive peace towards a two-state solution. The two-state solution cannot be done with just wishful acts, but walk the talk now and create two states so that the two sides can live in peace. The Arab neighbor recognizing the right of Israel. Israel is going nowhere. So there's no need to say that we're at war with Israel. And at the same time, Israel must recognize the fact that the Palestinians cannot be wished away, cannot be bombed away. The more they bomb, the more the remnants of the Palestinians will themselves become future or more dangerous mutations of Hamas. So we must have the two-state solution, accepting to live at peace with each other. That's our position. At the domestic level, we at the Academy think that this is outside our shores, but we're a country that is interested in this matter. Why are we interested? Because we have good numbers of almost equal numbers of Christians and Muslims with sentimental attachments of various sorts to Israel and to the Palestinians and the Arabs. And so with that being the situation, we should be able to join our religious leaders, our leaders of thoughts, our media, for them to try not to be prejudicial in their comments and in their public utterances. I think those are the way the thinking is. But with respect to the speech by Netanyahu, it is something that went a little bit hitting below the belt. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I can see that Professor Akinyemi has his, Dr. Akinyemi, you have your hand raised, sir. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, Prof.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Acting Chair. On the court ruling, I think that the ruling is now a fait accompli. By implication, we can comment on what had been completed. The document, the court ruling, is now a research material. It cannot be seen as a no-go area. My point of submission on that is that at the domestic level, even though there is no known research record to show the extent, the number of people who can be said to have trust in the judicial system as a whole. People do not believe that we have a system that can be really considered reliable. But when you go to beer parlors, you go to motor parks, you see all those things, what they will tell you is that, look, but we know what the court is going to say. Now, for me, as a student of international relations, I am more concerned about the image of Nigeria, about the image of the government. Now, if, for instance, you go to any given diplomatic stratum of society, how would they see our own plenipotentiaries? With which eyes are they going to see? What will be their mind? I think this is an area that we should sit down and begin to address so that we can help the country to polish. Secondly, on the issue of the speech by the Prime Minister of Israel, my brother, Ambassador Higali, described it as terrible. Well, honestly, I wouldn't see anything terrible in it because it is not new. That has always been the language used by Israeli government officials right from 1967 to date. And why is it so? The reason cannot be far-fetched. The policy of the United States towards Israel is to ensure that Israel remains the most powerful hegemon in the Middle East. The Americans do not want any country there to be as strong as Israel. And as a result of that, all efforts are being made to sustain, Israel. Without going back to history, what we should simply note is that when the state of Israel was created by midnight, 14th May 1948, the United States was the first to recognize Israel. And a day after, when the Arab countries decided to launch attack on Israel, the Americans were there to ensure that they were defeated. What I'm saying in essence is that time, Americans have been encouraging Israel to act, quote and unquote, recklessly, and nothing has been done. Is it the first time that Israel will be launching attacks on civilian institutions, attacking non-combatants? Is it the first time? Even when on October 7th, when, for instance, the Hamas launched the, unprovoked attack on Israel, they say it's unprovoked. I have my reservation on that. The issue was that the Prime Minister made it clear that they will wreck, they will finish, they will destroy Gaza. Now, with particular reference to the Hamas organization, they've been referring to that. So that was more bellicose, more belligerent. So now, by last midnight to today, if, for instance, they now attack, it's consistent with the declared policy. And in this particular case, I do not know when Israel has said, we are going to destroy this, we are going to do this, we are going to blockade, we are going to do all that. The statement is consistent with their policy stand. And it's, if you want to recall the United Nations Security Council resolutions voted when America is now asking for, humanitarian ceasefire. No, I think it was China that asked for humanitarian ceasefire. I think America was talking about labor. I've forgotten how they describe their own draft. Now, the two votes were, rejected. They couldn't be accepted. When you see it, the resolution as drafted by the United States was in favor of Israel. Others rejected that one to say, look, if you want ceasefire, it simply means stoppage of hot power totally, no battle, but not to talk about partial, ceasefire. The point I'm trying to make there is that, look, Israel is on record to have been breaking, to have been violating international law, particularly international humanitarian law, and nothing has happened. Whenever efforts are made to sanction Israel, America has always used its veto. Now, when we come to I think there's another issue that was raised. I've forgotten. What was the third issue, Mr. Moderator? Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you, sir. It was about the speech, sir, of the Prime Minister and how that speech was going to be received by other people that were in the Middle East area, sir.
But there's another issue you raised too. There were three.
United Nations
the Human Rights Commission.
Yes, Human Rights Commission. Thank you. Now, how the Prime Minister's speech will be received? It will be received as usual. People will comment, reject, but nothing will happen beyond that. But for the vote at the UN, I will simply remind when our academic diplomats will tell us we need to do something at the home level and finish and do things, we tend to defend our system. It's most unfortunate. I know of a case, this is not a hearsay. I had the opportunity of following my foreign minister to the UN, Ojuma Duekwe, when he was foreign minister. And by that time, Nigeria wanted to come back to the UN Security Council. At the West African level, we all know how nominations are done. This time at the West African level, ECOWAS presented Nigeria's candidature as West African candidature. The AU adopted it. There was also this former official of the AU from Gabon. Now, they were the two now being considered at the level of the UN General Assembly. Now, when they were counting the votes at the UN General Assembly, when they were counting, the president of the General Assembly himself had forgotten that the microphone was very close to his mouth. And he now saw a sheet of paper where, for instance, a country like the Gambia and another West African country voted for themselves. They didn't vote against Nigeria. And now the president was asking, is the Gambia a candidate? It's not listed. Then the whole the whole assembly, people seated down were just laughing, worried. To now say, how? Now the import of what I'm saying is that countries that are being assisted, aided by Nigeria, the Gambia for that matter, because Nigeria opted to take the position of West Africa, they were voting against Nigeria over there. what happened? Absolutely nothing. I am simply saying that all these West African neighbors that we consider as our neighbors, at the end of the day, they don't like Nigeria. I am repeating, they don't like Nigeria. But now our own diplomacy is to give the impression that they like us. So if we could not get more than 3 votes, and we are now saying we have a good image, what type of good image do we have? Where is the good image coming from? It has been there for long. They only expose our very good diplomatists striving to provide a good image for Nigeria. But back home here, it's a completely different kettle of fish. And I think that there is the need to sit down and be more objective to engage in objectivity of purpose, honesty of purpose. If we are honest with ourselves, then we do what is needful. I think that is the bitter truth that we should begin to address respectfully, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Dr. Thomas, can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, my concern about the Middle East issue is I'm interested in knowing whether anything can be done to the kind of Islamic fundamentalism that Iran operates. I know it's the Shiite kind of thing, or whether it's the Salafi kind of thing. And I want to also know, how can we say other nations, other Islamic states like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, and co, Egypt, they have accepted this brand of Islam. And because it's not doing any good to the image of Islam generally, and why there is no strong condemnation by these Arab countries. Well, it's a common knowledge that both Saudi Arabia and Iran were the principal actors or principal competitors in Yemen. But now they were even at a stage of becoming friends. They were trying to reestablish relations. Does that mean that nothing can be done again? I believe that for as long as we have this kind of Hamas, Hezbollah, Taliban kind of Islam, we can hardly talk about global peace. It's very difficult to have global peace because Iran has carved that as its own brand, and there is nothing about it than terrorism. Well, I'm not using Western language. I just believe that any kind of Islam that believes in beheading people indiscriminately and terrorizing other nations is not it at all. And unfortunately, concerning this attack, I'm still yet to see. I think it was Queen of Jordan who was condemning the Western nations that they are just doing double standard, that they are condemning Hamas. They are condemning Hamas. They are yet to condemn Israel for the killings of children and elderly people and women. I feel so concerned too about these children being killed. It's not the kind of, in fact, sometimes because I cannot face the emotional assault. Sometimes when they want to show the onslaught or the killings or whatever Israel is doing now in Gaza, I will just leave the place because I don't like seeing children paying for the sins of their fathers or the sins of their elders. So I'm just trying to see, and I believe that if they can curb this fundamentalism and reduce terrorism or terrorist tendencies, we may have some peace, because what Israel is saying is that for as long as Hamas retains its military structure or military infrastructure as it is, it's not going to feel comfortable. It's not going to feel comfortable at all, with Hamas having this thing, with this kind of machine at the back of at the back of their backyard. And we can see that the Palestinians, or let me say those in West Bank, the Mahmoud Abbas thing, they are trying to learn how to live in peace with with Israel. I know it's difficult, but this one that Hamas has introduced is very, very. I mean, it gives me concern. Can anything be done, sirs? To this kind of thing, and then can there be solution, or can this even be one of the solutions to the Middle East conflict, sir? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, sir. If I can crave the indulgence of Ambassador Igali, if you don't mind, sir.
Yes,
one thing that has struck me about the position of Israel is that distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian people. And I wonder, sir, what is your take on that clear distinction? Is it as straightforward to distinguish what Israel is doing, attacking Hamas, and say, well, we're not attacking the Palestinians, it's Hamas we're attacking, when that place is as densely populated as it is? What is your take, sir, on that subtle distinction between we're going after Hamas, not after the Palestinian people?
I think that with the level of global condemnation of what Israel is doing, the Israelis, I believe, are not bombing indiscriminately and targeting civilian um, populations deliberately. The Israeli spokesman of the IDF and of the government stated that much of the war has been taking place in the tunnels that go on to over about 200 kilometers of tunnels between Israel and the Hamas territory, where they have a lot of their depots and their military facilities. It's almost like a city, a subway system underground. Besides that, a lot of Hamas operatives, or Hamas, just like a group like Hezbollah, are known to sometimes operate within the comfort of built-up areas, and also, according to Israel, particularly Israeli and American intelligence sources, which some doubt that are correct, have their operational facilities, depots within areas that people live. And they use the human beings, the ordinary citizens, as human shields. I think that it's difficult for the Israelis to separate between the ordinary Palestinians and Hamas. So if they take the battle, if an ordinary Palestinian, for example, goes to stay in an underground tunnel, then the person places himself at risk. And there are some of the clear areas of high concentration of Hamas elements that Israel knows, and they've told people to move away from, which is itself very difficult because southern Gaza has become terribly overpopulated with even in temporary shelters, tens of human beings living in almost subhuman conditions. To move about 2 million people away from their location it's not a small number. So those who remain in areas that are clearly targets are placing themselves at the center of the belligerency. But I think that what the global community is demanding of Israel, number one, is to consider the humanitarian situation. Hamas has done what they've done, but let us look at it that 1,400 people were killed. We still, according to Hamas, we still have over 200 people who are held, and they should be released unconditionally, immediately, as a negotiating point to start to talk about the thousands of Palestinians in Israeli prisons. But first, the people have to be released. But then, it is a big moral burden. Now we are expecting that ground troops will move in. Israel has amassed hundreds of tanks and anti-tank facilities on the border with Gaza. And they said, we are not going to tell you when, we are not going to tell you exactly how, but we are going to move in anytime from now, which is like total bringing down of everything. I think at a point, this idea of collective punishment has been reviewed. So the humanitarian aspect, mind you, on the Palestinian side, from the counts we're having, about 4,000 to 5,000 people have been killed already. So let the Israeli side also weigh the implication of this and perhaps have some tactical changes in their strategy in terms of maybe continuing with targeted specific military actions rather than the collective bombardments and what could happen in the ground offensive. So I think that it's going to be almost impossible to separate between innocent Palestinians and Hamas. And it's going to be war of attrition. It's not going to be one day. They've pushed Hamas to a point that perhaps there could be chance given for negotiation and for peace. There should be a pause in the military actions for humanitarian work and for serious engagement of negotiations and diplomacy to take place.
Thank you very much, sir. Professor Falode, I think you've got your hand raised. Can you please unmute yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So to reinforce what Ambassador Agali has just said, there is no way that there won't be civilian casualties in this kind of situation. Now, it is urban warfare. And Hamas has this style of using civilian shelters, homes, hospitals to launch attack against Israel. And of course, it is where the bomb is coming from, the missile is coming from, that the Israelis will actually have to retaliate too. So that explains the high incidence of civilian casualty in this instance. They've been using the civilians as what we call a human shield. So there is no way, like I said, it's an urban situation. This kind of thing was what happened in the Mosul. Americans are just being cynical. I mean, the world is just being cynical when they're now complaining that what Israel is doing to Hamas is wrong. When ISIS took over, that's Iraq, the second largest city in Iraq, Mosul, they embedded themselves within the civilian quarters. Americans had to fight from street to street, from room to room. I mean, there are a lot of the civilian casualties before they were actually able to root out ISIS between 2014 and 2016. It's the same kind of situation they are now facing in Gaza. Hamas knew exactly what it was doing. Like I said, it's urban warfare. They are deliberately using human field, hospitals, schools, and so on, the sports field, to attack the Israelis. Israelis have no choice. The IDF, they have no choice other than to attack, to retaliate. And in that process, of course, we get the civilian casualties. That is one. Two, importantly, we have Palestinians. Then we have militant Palestinians. Now, in the West Bank, you have the original Palestinian Liberation Organization, which is what we call the ELO of Yasser Arafat. Then later, when they normalized relationship with Israel, they now became the Palestinian Liberation Authority. Now, again, in the Gaza Strip, you have political Hamas, then you have militant Hamas. They are all Palestinians. It's just that one is more radical than the other. The conservative ones, of course, had resigned themselves to that two-state solution. I mean, they have no choice that Israel will exist same way. But the militant, to a large extent, that's the PLO, and of course the other side too, the militant wing of Hamas, they've also resigned themselves to the same fate. The problem they have with Israel is the system of apartheid that Israel has actually introduced into that region. If you look at the code name they gave to this attack that they launched this October 7, they call it Al-Aqsa flood. Al-Aqsa flood, exactly. Al-Aqsa is the name of one of the most important mosques in Jerusalem. And like somebody said, incorrectly, the Israelis have been maltreating the Palestinians. It was a case of pent-up fury. They could no longer take that thing. They violated that mosque. It's one of the holiest sites to the Muslims, to the Palestinians. That was one of the driving or remote cause, because it's responsible for that conflict that we now saw on that October 7. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I can see Dr. Ladi, Colonel Dr. Ladi Soares. Colonel Dr. Ladi Soares. Can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Thank you very much. And the chair, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you very, very much. Middle East is very, very interesting. I'm a military guy, and I'm an international relations scholar. So I have two caps. First of all, there's a misconception. There's a low party at play. Inability of human beings to distinguish between causes and symptoms. They're not the same thing. When we talk about casus bellum, what are the major causes of war, remote, intermediary, or whatever? Throughout recorded history, war has always been fought when you have contending national interests that are diametrically opposed to each other. So, either Hamas, it's peaceful or militant or whatever, the basic thing is that there's what we call humanity. There's international humanitarian law from conflict. The Israelis have been very, very ruthless throughout their history, from 48 to 56 to 67 to 73. Very, very ruthless. And why are they ruthless? Because we have two hegemonic powers behind the creation of Israel. And there's one hegemonic power that is still very pro-Israeli, that's the United States. And exactly when you have elections coming up, there are a lot of Jewish populations in New York and California who must vote for one party or the other. And considering that the incumbent is a Democrat, and he wants to be re-elected for another 4 years, President Biden has no choice but to declare openly for Israel. In fact, the United States have abandoned its mediating roles and now have taken the side of siding with one of the combatants, one of the antagonists. I am saying that this crisis, if it becomes a regional one, it might dovetail into a world war, and God forbid. So I think humanity is the most important thing. And for those of us who are from Nigeria or Africa, we should not say we are Christians. Christianity is not Judaism. The Bible is different from Torah. For some religious people praying for Israel to win a war is sheer ignorance. Sheer ignorance. I was thinking that the Palestinians have a right to exist side by side by the Israeli. And we should go back to this two-state solution. And the Palestinians have been oppressed, suppressed, and repressed. Where you push people to the wall, what do? They've got to come out and defend themselves. So exactly what Hamas has done is provoking the conscience of the Israelis to go back to the drawing table, to go back to Camp David, to go back to 1993 Oslo, to go back to the two-man solution, state solution, and negotiate for God's sake. And each party should pari passu recognize themselves, their existence, so that we do not have too much sufferings of women and children. I am not saying the Hamas have done well, and I'm not also saying that the Pyrrhic victory our Israelis are working on is realistic. It will first, if you animate most of those Palestinians, and generations of them will be more pugnacious than this one. They should not be Scotch-earth policy. They should not destroy a whole civilization for the sake of a few Hamas who has slaughtered the Israelis and all the rest of it. There should be the difference between causes and symptoms. There's a cause to this. We should not be looking at those symptoms. And the superpowers should be very careful, because the Chinese too are coming up. It might be an economic power. So we should be careful, especially those of us in Nigeria. Judaism is not Christianity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Doctor, please go on.
Okay, one question I want to ask, Sir Colonel, before you go. As the military man with your background, one of the things people have been asking is that Israel has been amassing troops along the border. They've been saying they're going in. What do you think could be causing the delay from Israel? Is it preparedness of the Israeli army, or is it tactical? Is this kind of operation normal from a military perspective? So it would be good to hear that view, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very, very much. Are you hearing me?
Go ahead, sir.
Are you hearing? No, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much. You see, when there's military operation, where a lot of you soften the ground. There are four phases of war. You advance to contact. When you get to contact, you attack. Failure to hold your objective, you withdraw. So in an attack, in an offensive operation, when you have a kinetic operation, you have to soften the ground prior to endangering. You have to have area bombardment. You have to prepare, you have to soften the ground before you introduce the infantry or the armor into the theater of operation. What is happening now is that there are hostages who are around populations inside in underground embedded places, and they know that the prisoners of war will be endangered. So what they are doing, in essence, is to disorganize the Hamas and make sure there's a lot of confusion. And when there's a lot of confusion, there will be logistic attention. They have to make sure they separate the women, the children, they keep them safe and all the rest of them. And they divide their attention from preparing to meet the onslaught. So what they're doing is that they're softening the ground waiting for a time where, and also the intelligence of the Israelis are at work. They're locating those places where the hostages are held, and they're dropping leaflets for informants to give information as to the locations of those hostages. But what they're doing is that their bombardment is very, very, very unpredictable. It's a scorched earth policy. It's a very wrong tactics. So what the Israelis are doing is that in a few days' time, if the war do not come to a resolution at the Security Council UNSC, it might be possible for us to see mayhem in a few days. That's how operations normally begin. Nobody goes in with infantrymen unprepared. The Air Force must do their work. In fact, even the amphibious people are also at a large. And there are a lot of people in the Gaza getting ready to do the damage.
Thank you very much, sir.
God save us.
Thank you very much,
what is
sir.
coming.
Ambassador Leu, can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank all those who have been contributing to this debate, particularly the historical background and the current trends going on there. What is still missing is the abandonment of the responsibility by the Security Council of being the custodian of maintaining international peace and security. There have been veto powers against veto powers, using the Security Council as if it is a football field. I think the time has come for the United Nations General Assembly, as they did some years ago, to have a united resolution, a United Nations resolution, which they call the United Resolution for Peace, so that the whole world will not be at a loss, waiting for a useless Security Council that is making the world not to sleep. Let the GA itself use their power as they did some years ago to have a united resolution for peace. That helped, and it was caused by the Israeli war at that time. Another one has come now. So, in order to avoid all these various mayhem, the Third World War that we may, hello,
Go ahead, sir.
We may have to have the United Nations itself through the using the GA to have a united resolution for peace. That helped before, and it can still help. We should not be left prostrate by the actions of the United States and the Soviet Union, who are using their veto power to keep us prostrate. This is my own opinion. Thank you.
Ambassador, sir, before I let you go, since you talked about the UN there, what is your take on the backlash that the United Nations Secretary General has faced for some of the comments that he made? Primarily the fact that he said the war did not happen in a vacuum, and that has thrown this backlash between Israel to the extent that Israel has been calling for the resignation of the Secretary General. What's your take on that, sir?
Israel is looking for a scapegoat. If Gaza had not been made an open prison with high walls electric wall that the people cannot go out, they cannot come in, they have to take permission. Even their access to the Mediterranean Sea is being blockaded by the Israelis. What do you expect the Hamas or the Palestinians to do? Should they be living as slaves and prisoners forever? No, he was telling the truth. Israel doesn't want to hear the truth. They think that they are the end of the world, and whatever they do, the world has to accept it. No, there is a limit to it. I support the Secretary General what he said. He tried to balance it. He condemned the Hamas infringement and the way they killed the Israelis when they invaded Israel. And at the same time, he also went ahead to tell the Israelis that what they have been doing in the past was the cause of this. Have they not enslaved the Palestinians and put them in prison, as it were? Perhaps the aggravation wouldn't have led to what happened on October 7th. So I support the Secretary General, what he said. He said the truth, either they like it or not. He does not have to be afraid of anybody. He has to be fair. He's a referee, and he has to be seen to be an honest broker as much as he can, even if the so-called big powers will not allow him.
All right, thank you for that, sir. I think on that note, we will bring the program to a close. I'm not sure I was able to get, the team were able to get Prof back on. I saw him come off and drop. So that there's certainly an issue there. I apologize for that. We will look into that and make sure that we address that for next week. But I do want to say a big thank you to our Ambassador Igali. Thank you very much for stepping in and helping out this evening. Thank you very much, sir. Ambassador Lewu, thank you, sir. Professor Akin Akinyemi, thank you. And Colonel Dr. Suarez, thank you for that perspective from a military point of view. I think that was very, very much appreciated. And I think it's the first time that we've had someone with that military perspective to share on the Thursday program. So thank you very much for that, sir. And on that note, I will bring the program to an end today. I'm sure Professor Akinyemi will be back next week, and we'll pick up from where we left off. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the comments. One quick comment from Ambassador Olaoshebikon. Let me just read these notes out before we close. Is the war in Gaza different in any shape and form from the devastation going on in Ukraine? Do we have different definition when we discuss humanity afflictions, or we are plain afraid to speak to Russia the way we are doing so freely on Gaza? Russia has destroyed several cities in a scorched-earth manner, and we seem benign on Russia, some even applauding that Ukraine called for what they are getting. Israel is high-handed, just the way Russia has done in Ukraine. How can the UN bring all warring factions to the table? Ambassador Igali, I think this is probably one for you, sir.
No, I don't think it needs a very long and complicated answer. International relations and the contacts between states are full of duplicity, different strokes all the time. So I don't think it is totally amiss, because what is happening in Ukraine, the level of devastation, the amount of humanitarian destructions is totally unacceptable, and is something close to what is happening in the Gaza. In the 21st century, that a big nation, a major world power, can pound, just overrun its smaller neighbor, is unbelievable that it can happen. But yet the Supreme Council, the United Nations Supreme Council has been unable to arrive at a resolution at the council, which makes it makes a travesty of international law, because each time there's effort to make a resolution against Russia, both Russia and China veto it. And this is what Israel is now doing. If there's any effort to have any strong resolution against Israel, America vetoes it. So I think we have to live with those double strokes in international relations.
All right, thank you. That was from Alabi Williams and Ambassador Lawrence Obishaki. Thanks again, Prof, moderator, in terms of sentimental attachment to the Palestinian cause in the Middle East. We should not forget that we have ethnic Arabs in Nigeria. They are the Shua Arabs known as the Bagara. On the 3 votes reportedly recorded by Nigeria, the UN elections, we had that Nigeria had officially withdrawn its candidature in favor of West African candidates. We even had Cote d'Ivoire wrote to thank Nigeria for withdrawal that favored them. Thank you very much for that comment there, sir. Much appreciated. And on that note, I think we should be able to bring the program to a close, unless I can see Professor Akinyemi on. Let me see. No, it's still showing as a little unstable. Thank you, everyone, and good night. See you same time next week. Once again, thank you, Gali.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, all.